Boom! Welcome to Life Plus Health, the human biosystem and beyond. I am Alan, the host of the channel. What are my credentials, if any? First off, reliability check. Well, unfortunately, there are no formal credentials that I can show you because I haven't earned a degree, for instance, or whatnot. So if you are one of those individuals that refuse to listen to, anything unless someone has a PhD by their name or whatever else, then okay, go ahead and check out if you'd like to. Otherwise, hear out whether or not there might be any basis upon which you can consider this channel as among the sources that you allow in as an input to your ever-constructing knowledge base. So I did study exercise science, taking courses in it. I just didn't complete the degree. I've had for nearly 2 decades, so nearly 2/3 of my life or so, an interest in exercise science and related areas, and probably associated with my ADHD. It's like hyper-focus, hyper-fixation, whatever. Whenever you're keenly interested in something, it's just more of a pattern with those diagnosed with ADHD. And in my view, there's a spectrum of which, most everybody probably, from here or there, observably is in some type of hyper-fixated, hyper-focused state, whatever. Regardless, off and on, I've researched it for a long time, okay? And in the last couple years, due to compulsion to do so, I just, on a whole nother level, all the different areas, everything related to the human biosystem, just meaning your entire organism as a human, how everything works, I was compelled to learn about because of a serious illness again. So I was learning just from, okay, what are the fundamentals, function, structure, everything, how it all works. And, then for a long time I was symptom chasing, and then but whatever, this is not about that. More experientially even than that is just the principle of bio-individuality and just my extensive experience in sports and as an athlete. And just, again, because I'm a little bit more of a cerebral individual, is that I will think, not only just, practice, but that theoretical, just thinking about X, Y, and Z associated with your experiential practicing of it and all that. But from a young age, I did not from a young age I was all like that, but from a young age, again, with the sports and athletics, I did gymnastics, was probably one of the first activities. Did some soccer, if you want to count it, it's like combative sports, and it's not even practically useful compared to like say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Krav Maga, Muay Thai, maybe a little kickboxing or something. But did karate, Taekwondo, so again, if you want to count that. Did football, track, wrestling, because one of my last occupations had to do a lot of an array of physical tests and like fitness tests and activities and whatnot. And I usually got decently high marks, sometimes some of the highest marks in like the group I was in, and did some grappling, did some sparring in that. The competitive swimming was the longest running sport that I competed at the collegiate level in that also. Did decently. I'm not a Michael Phelps genetically and anatomically, etc. But considering my anatomy and physiology, I did decently good. Like 100-meter fly, say butterfly, was one of the better events that I performed at. But that there's I'm not going to sit here and take 10 minutes to try and convince you. Again, no formal credentials, but I think that the content will speak for itself, and you can always, and that's how my perspective or my framing, the way that I approach content is, yes, of course, is a probabilistic indicator. Someone that does have formal credentials, it's typically more reliable than those who lack those formally recognized credentials. Of course. However, there are exceptions, individuals who lack, a formal credential, yet the content is on point. It's high quality content, reliable, etc. It checks out when you go and you X, Y, and Z, or X claim, Y claim, Z claim, all 3 of the claims, you go check claim 1, go check the studies yourself, read the studies, go check out, is this actually reflected in the data, etc. And you attempt to falsify it, right? And it checks out, okay? And then you do it again, and they keep passing the checks. Then it's like, okay, well, reliable, right? So that's what, I wish that more of us had that approach, because that is just what, I would argue that, we need to be doing regardless. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do it for every single individual claim that we ever hear, but I'm just saying that in general. So anyhow, enough of all that. It's taking way too long here. This channel, holistic human health, fitness, function, and performance. Okay, so I alluded to it, I believe, but in the last year or two, I took on to a whole new level learning about everything that this channel is basically centered around. And as I'll upload a video on, at least a first revision, I've outlined, okay, what are the fundamentals of holistic human health, right? And that term holistic can be a trigger word. It's like, oh, holistic. It's just meaning that you understand that mechanistically everything has some relation to some other part of the entire machine, the entire system, the entire organism that you are, okay? And it is a functional scientific fact. You take any example and ask, how is it a fact in this context? And I guarantee I can explain it to you, right? Now, a bulk of examples are going to show there is not a direct relationship, but at least when you include, okay, well, this affects this, that then affects this, that then affects that, yes, through those indirect relationships, there's inextricable links, from whatever angle you want to go from. Perhaps there are some extremely slim minority of exceptions. I'm not going to be dogmatic with this is just how it is, but certainly the interrelational connectedness is a core property of the system. And regardless of what subsystem you're talking about or what particular elements, it continues to show up as a feature or as a fact. So again, I alluded to it, but it's nearly been 2 years now. I was hit with a serious medical condition that ended up as a chronic condition, and was compelled largely out of desperation to figure it out and resolve it. I was without medical insurance and doing full-time school and working close to full-time hours, and I didn't want to disrupt either of those, certainly not work. If at all practically possible, I wanted to avoid reaching out to family to try to, can I come live with you for however long while I'm working to recover, because it was some of the symptoms were literally debilitating, right? Particularly when they flare up at their more severe levels. But so I was attempting to balance out and to manage at least the symptoms in the process of learning about what the hell the symptomology and the pathophysiology and what the causes and thus the way to treat it, the way to resolve it was, as best as I could. I was working to do that while doing the full-time school and the long working hours, etc. And I was doing an unhealthy amount of research and learning about it as much as I could. Just, there's hundreds of studies, expert interviews. Also, use ChatGPT, not as a primary source, but to help direct you. And also, like for instance, one of the queries that I would use quite often is name, for example, world-leading experts in blah, like whatever, some particular specific organ or system or biochemical process or condition or some element of what I was learning. I wouldn't always do that, but I would just, that was just one of the tools in the toolbox, right? But anyhow, so lots of expert interviews, webinars, etc. And with the studies, I wouldn't read letter to letter, but that's not necessary to glean anything from the scientific literature. Anyhow, so in that process, in these last couple of years, with how much I've learned and my experience with all of this, is that I have gained a newfound respect, understanding, and appreciation for how vital this all is. And unsurprisingly, I would say that for the overwhelming vast majority of us, it's not positioned at that level of perceived value until a time or a context in which we're basically forced to recognize it as a high priority at that point in time. And it's, oh, hey, now it's at a severe state or whatever. Let's address this now. So anyhow, from practical applied anatomy and physiology, exercise science, general and performance nutrition, neuroprotective, neurogenerative, nootropic, and psychosocially supportive, lifestyle-based tools, and much more, it's all for what can be employed to routinely regulate, maintain, repair, and upgrade your biosystem for better life, living, and health status. The aim is to help inform on, and as much as practically feasible for myself, demonstrate better self-care, ultimately enabling better, broader care. After all, we must care for ourselves in order to also do so for others. Within some limits, including those voluntarily set based on, for instance, my official outside occupation and obligations, other managed YouTube channels and content creation, etc. This is intended to form, again, as much as feasibly and practically possible, a world-leading learning center for meaningfully, subjectively, and objectively optimizing human health, fitness, functional performance, and quality of life. More particularly via more low and no-cost tools that are therefore more accessible to all. So that is what is in store.